Just Jason Johnson last night. He told me that Mr. Cruz and Mr. Trump spoke directly on the phone 2 or 3 days ago where Mr. Cruz told him that there would be no explicit endorsement. So why was the Trump campaign surprised last night? And secondly, you told us here earlier in the week that the primary goal of this convention is to unify the party. So does it feel more or less unified after Cruz was booed off the stage and his wife had to be protected by security leaving the arena?
Well, the answer to the second part of the question is the party is definitely more unified. There are a number of Cruz delegates who are on the floor today, who last night, who disagreed with what Senator Cruz did, including in his home state of Texas, and who unprompted were coming up to us saying that this wasn't right of Cruz, and they are supporting the Trump-Pence ticket. And beyond that, in the audience, the millions of people who were watching the convention, we think it became very clear to everybody that that Donald Trump has been very magnanimous in his outreach program. He invited all the presidential candidates who ran to participate in this convention and speak. He felt that they had gone through the crucible of a campaign and they had the right to speak. And there were no conditions put on any of them. We've never said that there were conditions put on them. Everyone who did attend in his own way said that they support the ticket or are voting for the ticket or endorse the ticket. Only Senator Cruz chose to slip away with something on conscience, and frankly, he was the only speech in the convention that was poorly received by the body in the hall. That was Senator Cruz's decision. Mr. Trump invited him because he wanted him to have the opportunity to speak. As to their obligations, well, they all signed pledges. Everybody knew about the pledges. They knew what that meant, what obligation that put on them, and how they interpreted their obligation. Senator Cruz, the strict constitutionalist, chose not to accept the strict terms of the pledge that he signed. So as far as the contract was concerned, he was the one in violation, not anybody else.
Mr. Manafort, yesterday Donald Trump told the New York Times that he would apply some conditions before helping countries like Turkey and NATO should they have advances by Russia. Can you explain what that means? Is he suggesting there should be a new standard for whether the United States helps NATO countries?
No, what Mr. Trump has said consistently is that he thinks NATO needs to be modernized and NATO needs to be brought into the world of the 21st century, where terrorism and ISIS, which didn't exist when NATO was created, are taken into account in the way they deal with things. I mean, back when NATO was created, it was more nation-state operations. Today, it's this amorphous, borderless countries of ISIS that present challenges to the West. I'm not going to get into a foreign policy speech today, but he was talking about needing to modernize things. Any other questions about the convention? Yes?
Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the DNC chairwoman, said yesterday that there was a threat of anti-Semitism throughout the Republican Party that landed at the feet of Donald J. Trump. And the truth is, we've seen white supremacists among the protesters. We've seen white supremacists among the protesters here. We've seen we saw Linda Lingle's comments on the YouTube shut down because of that. I mean, what do you say about what Debbie Wasserman Schultz says, and what do you say about the problems of anti-Semitism?
Do you know who Debbie Wasserman Schultz is?
Yes.
Okay, well, you know what her title is?
She's a chair.
Okay, so she's obviously making political statements that have nothing to do with the reality of what's going on here. We've had rabbis, we've had bishops, we've had all denominations participating. I don't control who's in a protest rally on the streets. Any other questions?
Well, how did you go through the campaign's thinking last night in terms of bringing Mr. Trump out into the arena while Senator Cruz was speaking? Is this sort of an effort to sort of tell Senator Cruz to do it to my face rather than do it while he wasn't there?
I mean, everybody reads their own interpretations into it. The next speaker after Senator Cruz was his son, Eric Trump. We were on a tight schedule. We were ending the program on time, but at that point in time, it was important to move Mr. Trump before the previous speaker finished in order to have him in the box when Eric began to speak. That was the motivation.
The news coming last night and into the morning, a lot of the news coming out of yesterday's events were the Cruz news. The day before, you had a lot of them. The day before that,
a lot of the news coming out of it had to do with Melania's speech and the plagiarism charges. I mean, do you feel like you've been able to effectively communicate the message that you've wanted to communicate at this convention?
Absolutely. The speeches have all been well received. I mean, that's the bottom line. People are hearing the message. Our overnight dials are telling us that people are getting the points across that we wanted to communicate. I think, notwithstanding some of the sidebar coverage that you all have provided, the main messages of the failures of the Obama-Clinton administration, the need to have a new leadership, to change versus establishment's the definition of the election, and the broader message of who Donald Trump really is, which will be culminating tonight with the program in the 9 and 10 o'clock hours, are resonating. I think you'll see next week that the polls will show that the convention was successful.
Last question.
Mr. Manafort, you said earlier this week that it was absurd to suggest that Melania's speech was plagiarized. Of course, a writer came out yesterday and said that they had unintentionally lifted some phrases from Michelle Obama. I mean, how did those two statements fit together?
Thank you for asking. Look, none of us knew that Ms. McIntyre was even involved in the process. So the process I went through Monday night when the issue was raised was I asked Melania Trump what the story was about. She insisted, and I believe her, that these were her words. I mean, in the statement that Ms. McIntyre gave yesterday is consistent with that. And the speechwriters who had been involved in the speech that I was aware of said that they had not lifted anything either. Those are the only people I knew who were in the process. When the First Lady-to-be tells me that she didn't do it and the speechwriters tell me they didn't do it, as far as I'm concerned, they didn't do it. I did not know about the role of Ms. McIntyre, and when she came forward, we immediately put forward the statement. Thank you very much.